Yeah, so the V33 model that Nick was talking about, essentially it means that if you lock in Spirit, you will never get diluted by farming emissions. And so this was something that we got from Solidly is essentially the contract that distributes Spirit emissions to farms will check how much Spirit is locked up and then how much is circulating, and I guess take that division and then apply it to how much spirit to emit. So what it does there is it will emit a bunch of spirit to in-spirit holders. So the payout for in-spirit holders will be such that they won't get diluted by farming emissions. And I guess another big difference there is that in the solidly model, when you receive that rebase, it gets like auto locked into your position. So if you had a 4-year lock going and you receive a rebase, like that rebase is also locked for 4 years. So you don't really ever see it, but in our system, you get it all unlocked directly to your wallet. So, and I guess one more thing I wanted to add is everything is very, I guess, configurable. For example, if we realize that we don't exactly like the V33 model, the community can place a vote and we can just turn it off without deploying like any new contracts or anything.
Welcome to Mission DeFi with Brad Nickel, where we explore projects in decentralized finance that are innovating and driving our mission of financial freedom forward. Thank you for listening. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, rate, and review Mission DeFi and spread the word by posting a tweet to the show. All opinions expressed by Brad Nickel or his guests are their opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Black Knox, Material Indicators, or any other affiliated organizations. You should not treat any opinion expressed by Brad Nickel or his guests as an inducement to make a particular investment, follow a particular strategy, or become involved with any project. A project being featured on the show is not an endorsement of that project in any way. This podcast is for informational purposes only. Now, here's Mission DeFi with Brad Nickel.
All right, I am excited today to have back my buddies at Spirit Swap, who I'm a big fan. I spend way too much time on their protocol probably, but have a good time using it. And I am loving the new version of it because it is fast and snappy and really lets you get a lot more done. And so I'm going to have the guys introduce themselves. We'll start with Sid and we'll take it around and you guys tell us a quick bio about yourself and then we'll climb into what you've built and what you're building and where things are going from here. Does that sound good?
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, man. Hey guys, this is Sid. I'm the CTO of the dev firm that was building Spirit Swap. I also take care of partnerships along with Nick here at Spirit Swap. So I'll pass it up to Nick.
All right.
Yeah, hey guys, Nick, operations manager at Spirit Swap. Again, working in tandem with Sid in terms of partnership and business development management and kind of making sure the right hand folks to elect that, so to speak.
Sounds good. Rob.
Hey guys, Rob. I'm a PM here at Spirit Swap. So working a lot with our devs. PM stands for either program manager or like product manager, depending on what company you work for in the tech world. Yeah. So working closely with our devs, making sure they have the right tasks and are working on the correct things.
Hey guys, my name is Heesh, and I guess my domain is research and development. And to sort of get into what is Spirit V2, it's sort of an upgraded AMM and just overall system for Spirit Swap. We've made many changes to the tokenomics, to the fee structure, and to the underlying AMM technology.
Cool. You guys want to start breaking out kind of each of those things that you did and why they're important?
Yeah, I guess I'll start with the AMM. So in Spirit Swap V1, we had the Uniswap V2 equation, which was XY equals K. We still have that now, but we've also added in a stable swap equation. So technically we have two AMMs. They are under the same contract though, but now we have the constant product equation and then also a stable swap equation. So it's more optimized for tokens that are kind of remain in the same price.
Does it allow you to kind of concentrate the liquidity around those things that stay in the same price? Is that the idea?
Yeah, exactly. So you'll see much tighter slippage. So I guess less slippage, less price impact, and concentrated liquidity around those prices.
Very cool. And then in terms of kind of the tokenomics, want to climb into that some more?
Yeah, I guess we could start with the fee structure. So our underlying AMM technology is kind of a modified version of Solidly, and we noticed some things about Solidly that we wanted to change. For example, on Solidly, it was a flat 0.01% fee for both variable swaps and for stable swaps. And so when I refer to variable swaps, I'm referring to that Uni V2 AMM equation, and then stable swaps uses that stable AMM equation. And we thought that was sort of holding it back, especially because in variable swaps or the variable AMM, liquidity providers experience a lot more IL. So we kind of need to have a different fee than for stable swaps where there's not really any IL and permanent loss.
Right.
So I guess one of the changes we made is that the stable swaps and the variable swaps can have different fees. So currently we have variable swaps sitting at 0.18% fees and then stable swaps at 0.04% fees.
And kind of from the perspective of can you position this backwards towards the perspective of kind of the benefits to the end user, right? And why that's important. Obviously, the stable swaps is great to have the concentrated liquidity to reduce slippage. But in terms of kind of your motivation for structuring it this way, I'm assuming you wanted to differentiate the fees based on the different needs. Can you kind of climb into that a little bit?
Yeah, so I guess the stable swaps kind of add another element to our decks. Originally, most stable swap volume was going through either Curve or Beats on Phantom because they had an optimized AMM for that sort of stuff. But now we've sort of entered that market. I mean, we can provide very low slippage trades between stable coins or tokens that are in the same price range. And yeah, so it kind of opens doors for what's available on Spirit Swap and what users can do there. So now they don't have to go to different platforms in order to swap stables with low slippage. They can do it straight on Spirit Swap.
And you guys are now running, all of your code. I mean, you did a lot of rewrites of the actual code itself, right? This is no
Yeah, we
longer kind
did.
of
I guess that was just one of the changes. Another one is that we can update the fees. So in Solidly, you can't make any changes to the fees. So they always remain at 0.01%. But in Spirit B2, if we have competitors that come out with lower fees, we can just go ahead and lower them on the spot. We don't need to redeploy anything. So it kind of is a lot more versatile. And I guess to continue on that, we also made changes to the fee structure. So I can elaborate there. The way the AMM works is a little bit different than most people are used to with Uni V2. So in Uni V2, you have your LP and you get fees there, but you don't really ever see them. They kind of just like compound directly into your LP token. But in our AMM, the fees kind of stack up in a separate contract. So every LP contract on our platform has an associated fee contract. And any swap that's made through that LP kind of stacks up in that fee contract, and the owner of the LP, whether it be an address or another contract such as our gauge, is the one that receives those fees. So, for example, if someone deposits LP tokens in our gauges, which are farms, those gauges would be accumulating swap fees, and that's kind of how we do our voting fee mechanism. But I think I want to backtrack a little bit into our fee structure. So we kind of split it into three different areas. We have a protocol fee, and so that's for protocols that provide liquidity on Spirit Swap. For example, Liquid Driver could have a LQDR FTM pair, and they receive 25% of the fees from that LP. So it kind of incentivizes protocols to
nice.
provide liquidity on Spirit Swap, or maybe get their users to provide liquidity on Spirit Swap because they'll be earning from it. The second thing is our base fee, which is 25%. And so 25% of all swap fees are used to buy Spirit and then distribute to in Spirit holders. And then the remaining 50% is what we call a voting fee. And what this does is it kind of stacks up the fees from the LPs and then gets paid out to people that vote for that certain LP. So it kind of incentivizes in spirit holders to vote for high volume pools that are generating more fees instead of just like arbitrary pools. So that's kind of what that is.
That's awesome. So it sounds like almost all of this is oriented to how do we boost engagement and keep people coming into the protocol? How do we get more protocols partnered with us to drive more volume into Spirit Swap? And how do we make it so that the people who are participating in governance, in supporting Spirit Swap can earn more? Is that a good summary of it?
Exactly. Yeah, I really like the protocol fee because kind of entices other protocols to keep their liquidity on Spirit Swap or incentivize their users to keep liquidity on Spirit Swap because
Right.
they sort of directly earn out of it. Whereas in our old version V1, there was nothing really in it for them. But now if a protocol does a bribe on Spirit Swap, they're getting directly paid out from it.
And I happen to know because I'm in a group with a protocol with you guys that you guys have now made it a much more automated and easy process for protocols to manage their bribes in Spirit Swap as well, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Nick, you want to kind of touch on that, the process before and what it looks like now?
Yeah. And previously with respect to bribes, it was a very cumbersome manual process. Essentially, myself and sort of reaching out to these protocols each week, establishing what format of bribe that they wanted, and then manually announcing that to the community, manually announcing that on Twitter, basically making it apparent to everybody that this gauge voted on for this week, for this particular epoch, this is the bounty that's available to between those who vote on set gauge. Uh, just to give some background to people who might be new or are listening to us, a gauge is essentially a new system of farm whereby participants in the ecosystem who hold governance over that ecosystem can control how much emissions or incentives are sent to said farm each week in proportion to the voting allocation that's handed out from those governance participants.
Yeah, I actually have a theory that about 75% of the people in DeFi don't understand bribes at all. So actually, I'm really glad you went down that path.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's actually valuable for Spirit Swap to say, here's the system. So at its simplest level, the idea is this is protocols want liquidity to come to their protocol in Spirit Swap. And so they offer a token incentive or a financial incentive to the people who hold tokens on Spirit Swap that vote to decide where that liquidity goes. Is that
Yeah.
basics of it?
A bribe sounds rather ominous, but I mean, I guess that's the colloquialism that's used within, the community,
Yeah.
in something was coined, but pun intended, but sorry, I get that myself. But yeah, essentially it's beneficial for a protocol to build deep liquidity. Deep liquidity means that, the token can absorb large sales or large buys without moving the needle too much, which isn't really good for any party. Moving the needle too high means manipulation. Moving the needle too low means, your investors essentially, get wrecked. So by incentivizing deep liquidity, essentially they're absorbing that sort of price impact on high volume trades with low liquidity. So it creates less slippage, like Nish was alluding to earlier. So essentially a gauge system allows, participants in the protocol to vote on, which ecosystem, which project that's being supported by the protocol to emit X amount of emissions. More emissions means more rewards for liquidity providers, which means more liquidity provided and therefore deeper liquidity. As, sort of Heesh alluded to earlier, essentially because of the protocol fee that we offer, the protocols are now getting actual return on investment. And not only return on investment in terms of deeper liquidity, but return on investment in terms of literally cash back into their treasury or crypto back into their treasury. And how that's done is, basically 25% of all of the fees collected from swaps that happen within that pair. Let's just, for argument's sake, use Spirit Phantom as an example. So out of all of the fees that are collected, let's say $1,000 worth of fees collected a day, $250 would be sent to the Spirit Swap DAO treasury. So if Spirit Swap were to, let's just hypothetically say incentivize, that gauge with a $250 bribe for the week, just, using these figures here, they would essentially, at an average of $1,000 worth of trading fees generated per day, they would essentially get ROI on that bribe in terms of, direct return on investment within the first day. That means everything else is, being cherry on top. So, I mean, it's, not only rewarding the protocol by deepening liquidity, but it's rewarding financially as well in terms of their treasury, which they can then reinvest back into bribes, which thus creates a positive feedback loop, or, further reward, their community members and utilize those rewards as means to incentivize liquidity within their own protocol, for example, or staking rewards, etc. Yeah. So the old process that we used was very manual, basically meant us having to take snapshots every week, sending those snapshots to people who voted on, set gauges through the protocol, and the protocol wants to run an airdrop. It basically means you're doing an airdrop a week, which is just super cumbersome and annoying. Now we've built it into bribe contracts. So essentially a protocol can use our UI to go and make a bribe. Anyone actually can, use our UI to go and create a bribe. Doesn't necessarily have to be a protocol. It might be someone who's a live bag holder of that particular asset and wants to make sure that there is deep liquidity so they don't get used as exit liquidity. Go make a bribe on it, and essentially that will be paid out over the 7-day duration that particular boat was locked in for. Yeah. Sorry, I've waffled on there. Feel free to edit that out. But
No, that's good. No, they're good. That's good. That's fine.
I guess further to that, how this was sort of structured is it does generate an overall positive feedback loop. And this is something that I'll revert back to Hisham purely because I feel there's the need for us to discuss the VE33 tokenomic model that we've built into the Inspirit ecosystem now. Because essentially it means that, people who are paid out rewards for farming are now further incentivized to, rather than dump Spirit tokens, lock Spirit tokens, because the more you lock, the more you're going to be rewarded, the less you're going to be diluted moving forward. Maybe let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I guess before we get into that, one of the also major differences between our original manual bribe functions and then now that it's automated is that back then, like if you wanted to participate in these bribes, you kind of had to like follow us on Twitter, follow certain projects on Twitter, be pretty active in the Discord to see where the bribes are at, and then calculate the APRs all on your own. But now it's just like all in the UI, you see what bribes are available and you click on it and vote for it and you're in. So it's just a lot easier for the users and the bribers.
Yeah, so it increases participation because it makes it a lot simpler to actually participate rather than having to do the math, which none of us really want to do.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Right.
And yeah, so the V33 model that Nick was talking about, essentially it means that if you lock in Spirit, you will never get diluted by farming emissions. And so this was something that we got from Solidly as essentially the contract that distributes Spirit emissions to farms will check how much Spirit is locked up and then how much is circulating and I guess take that division and then apply it to how much spirit to emit. So what it does there is it will emit a bunch of spirit to in spirit holders. So the payout for in spirit holders will be such that they won't get diluted by farming emissions.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
So if you lock up in spirit or if you have in spirit, you can kind of just sit back and vote for farms and earn the actual tokens that are trading on those farms. So for example, if you vote for USDC and DAI LP, you'll be earning USDC and DAI tokens, all while your in spirit position isn't being diluted by farming emissions.
that's fantastic. Love that because that whole fear of locking up is like, okay, is this going to bite me later? So that makes a lot
Yeah.
of sense to make people feel safer about it.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess another big difference there is that in the solidly model, when you receive that rebase, it gets like auto locked into your position. So if you had a 4-year lock going and you receive a rebase, like that rebase is also locked for 4 years. So you don't really ever see it, but in our system, you get it all unlocked directly to your wallet. So, and I guess one more thing I wanted to add is everything is very, I guess, configurable. For example, if we realize that we don't exactly like the V33 model, the community can place a vote and we can just turn it off without deploying like any new contracts or anything. Same with the whole fee structure. If we decide we don't want a protocol fee or a base fee and just want it all to go to voting fees, it's just a quick function call through the DAO and we can change all that. So it's all very configurable.
So you've really kind of built it modularly so that you can make changes to the system without having to like redeploy everything all over again.
Exactly, because I mean, the main reason why I was kind of going for that was when we originally launched one, we had a 0.3% fee and we just realized like we were getting killed on aggregators. They're all going through much cheaper sources, even though like even if we had more liquidity than them, if they had like a 0.2% fee, they would beat us out in slippage and kind of destroy us in the aggregators. And that's where we were losing a lot of volume. So that's why we decided to make our fees configurable and kind of like future proof it. If someone does come in and try to compete with us with lower fees, we can just boom without having to redeploy all our contracts, lower the fees.
Nice. You could conceivably automate it later and just track what the aggregators are getting and then automate the function back in on the fees, right? I'm
Yeah.
just throwing that out there. So, no, that's really cool. What I love about all of this is every piece of the puzzle, every piece of the ecosystem has built-in incentives, right? So you have a focus on, DAO members and spirit holders, and you want them to earn more and make more. And you want them to be safer in terms of whether or not there's an impact from emissions. At the same time, protocols, I talked to Scoopy Trooples like 3 weeks ago, and he told me that, one of the nightmares of his life is managing liquidity. Like he never imagined when he launched Alchemix that he would be spending like 60% of his time dealing with liquidity calculations. So you guys have not only made that easier and simpler and cleaner for them to mess with and manage and automate, but you're also providing them an incentive by giving them 25% of what comes out back to that protocol, right?
Yeah.
And then go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna add on top of that, like over I guess my past year working in DeFi, I've just come to realize like how important liquidity is for literally every token out there. And it's just like all I think about nowadays. And I think someone from Tokemax said this in an interview once, and I thought it was really interesting. He said that liquidity is like the bandwidth of Web 2 for
Oh,
Web 3. And I
that's
thought
awesome.
that really made a lot of sense.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. That's a great way to think about it. Yeah, that's awesome. And then, of course, the people who come in to provide liquidity are making more and are more likely to participate with Spirit Swap than something else because of the way you guys have built the system and the incentives. I just like that you're making sure that you're hitting incentives all the way across the board, and that every player in the machine has something that's an advantage for them. That's great.
Yeah, there's some really, I guess, interesting feedback loops like among all these incentives. And I guess for me, my background was systems engineering. So it kind of helped to play into that instead of trying to like build a whole new crazy technology, just kind of focus on the system and try to build that out so that we can like improve the feedback loops there.
Yeah, it's really smart. Well, and then it makes sense for protocols to encourage their community to come to Spirit Swap because you make it easier, you make it so they make more. I love the way the whole system fits together.
Yeah, and just to add on top of that, well, originally when I guess we first launched on Phantom, there'd be a new project and they'd immediately go launch on some of their decks like Spooky. And their main reason was like they had a really nice UI.
Yeah.
But nowadays I feel like UIs are, they're all pretty good. Like ours has improved a lot. So we kind of needed to create a new reason for a new protocol launching on Phantom to come to us instead of someone else.
Yeah, makes sense. Provide them those incentives.
Yeah. And I was gonna add like there was another big reason why we went ahead with like these updates right now and like took like 3 months more than like do another kind of like migration later. Like we'll touch upon that like a bit towards the end as well, as part of like the whole DAO migration and like what was our kind of like vision and like how this fits in like really well with it.
Cool. Real quickly, let's go into kind of the UI. I mean, it's a pretty dramatic change that you guys have made. I mean, colors are the same, but otherwise, really nice, really compact, really tight, really fast. Was that a big job reskinning everything in the system and trying to make all the pieces work together, especially because you guys have not only your core code that you're dealing with, but you also have partners that are part of the platform as well. What was that process like? And kind of how did you rebuild it while also thinking about, okay, are users even actually going to like what we're rebuilding?
Yeah, great question. Something that Rob and I can take this one on. I guess we initially started with saying like, hey, like the code base from Pancake is like good, but like very clunky. Like we can't add more features. Like we wanted to add ape mode like last year, and it took us like 2 or 3 months just because like the way the code was written. It was like really messy, like not like easy enough to like just add features there. So at that point, like we made a decision like after we released the ape mode, like, hey, like if we want to scale and if we want to like do something new, we gotta like start fresh and like start clean. And that's pretty much like what Rob took on. Like Rob was like, hey, like I'll champion this effort of like getting V2 like so he's kind of like syncing up with like designers, getting like the design ready. Then we are getting like a feedback from like a set of folks that are close to us. Like, hey, how's this looking? Do you think like this is something that's gonna be like unique in the ecosystem? And like we just got feedback along the way. I kept on building. I guess like the easy part was like building the UI components was super easy. Like our devs like did an awesome job. Like we functioning UI in like 2 months. Like by
Nice.
February, March, we had everything done. I guess like the tricky part started to come in when Web3 started to like get involved. Like the integration started to come in, the balance, like let's say the balance updates that have to get updated as part of every swap. Those challenges started to come in after that. And like having like a repo that we built from scratch means we understand the whole code base. Plus, like, hey, we can change this because okay, this is not well written over here. And that really helped. And that is kind of like the main driving factor. I'll let Rob talk about it as well.
Yeah, I think the hardest part was also as we wanted to like you were saying, get feedback and then build what users want. We kept changing the goalposts over time. So like we would be like, oh, this is kind of what the final product will look like. And then 2 weeks later, it's like, oh, actually, this is what it's going to look like. And then so at some point, we kind of had to just say, no, nothing else can be added or changed.
Yeah.
Because we kept adding so much more time to things and frustrating everybody. And so eventually we just kind of put an end to all that. But yeah, that was a difficult part of things. And then also changing like some of the smart contract stuff. It didn't really, it was needed because of what was happening in the market. And Sid and he talked about that and realized it was needed, some of the changes that they made to the smart contracts. But of course, that affects the UI sometimes.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
it's because things move so fast, you have to do it. You don't have a choice. Otherwise, you launch and then maybe you're not relevant. So
Yeah, I was gonna say that like we had to update our smart contracts like twice. Like each and I wrote like a set of contracts, had fully tested, and then we are like, okay, they're, like solidly coming out with this new thing. Like maybe we incorporate some things like we really like those features. Then there's like another set of contracts, and then we're like, hey, this is still like not fully automated. Like, how do we get to a stage of like fully automated contracts? I'm like, it's like a third iteration. So like a building process as like how every development goes. But it's fun. Like UI kept on changing based on the tweaks that we made on like the smart contract side. Like, hey, we're like, we need a button now to add a farm. Like we never had that button before to permissionlessly like add a farm. So, okay, like that's a new component that we need to add now. Things like that.
yeah, and then we'd have to go through design and then do that whole process again. But I can't believe we actually released something.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and I got to tell you,
Uh,
I mean, I come from a product background in tech, and that whole first step of we're going to rewrite all this is a scary first step, right? Because you know how long you think it's going to take, and it's going to usually take twice that long. And then, you think about the fact that during all that time that you're not adding to what's already there, you're losing ground in the market, right? And so, that you guys kind of had the courage to take that step says a lot. And then, it just takes, then you have to just, once you bite that bullet, then you're in, right? And then you just got to make it happen. So it's impressive. The UI is beautiful. You guys did a really nice job on it. It's a good user experience, and it's impressive that you guys were able to pull that off. So, and I'm sure, there were delays that freaked everybody out in the community, and, you got to manage those expectations, but I bet is the feedback good so far?
yeah, it seems like it. Yeah, they're just small issues people report. And so we're just continually each day reporting bugs and then fixing them so we can take off that beta tag eventually once we're a little more.
Sure. I feel like a large portion of the bugs are also things that are out of our control. And it's a double-edged sword, like as part of V2, we wanted to start getting more and more decentralized, like as it is. And as a matter of fact, the dev team, the original dev team who created Spirit Swap, we're actually not the owners. The DAO is, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And part and parcel with that process, and sort of as we evolve throughout, I guess, the wireframe that was being built around V2, we're kind of having this active discussion of, how we don't want this to be centralized. We don't want to be the decision makers. We don't want to be, how can we get more people involved? You know what I mean? Governance obviously is one side of that. And
Sure.
in terms of governance, game theory, in terms of development contribution moving forward, I see, obviously a lot of the Wind Spirit protocols being a large part of that. Liquid River, is a very obvious candidate, but also, how do we kind of plug in other protocols being involved? So, we've got Paraswap, who's one of our aggregator partners that offer a master router, which essentially allows swaps to happen all within one deck, utilizing different AMM models.
Nice.
At a base level, the variable AMM, and then, the stable swap, and then other AMMs that are due to be rolled out in the future. We've got Covalent, we've got all the finance who's assisting with building the linear stable pools, which will ultimately benefit the Spirit Swap lending network that is powered by all of finance. You've got Lead Finance, who's contributed to the Spirit Bridge now. With Lead Finance plugging into things, we now have essentially a bridge aggregator. So people can not only bridge from multiple chains, but also swap at the same time, utilizing our routers, which means more fees for Spirit holders ultimately. So what we're kind of seeing here is like an amalgamation of other protocols being a part of building out Spirit Swap V2, And eventually that's what we want to see more of. We want full decentralization. We want as many parties involved and contributing towards Spirit Swap. But that being a double-edged sword, with so many other protocols being involved in the stitching and spreading, of forming what Spirit Swap V2 is, that also comes with other breakdowns as well. The fortunate thing is that the protocols we chose to partner with, and we're pretty ruthless and detailed in our selection process, is, even though there might be breakdowns or bugs that involve the partnership protocols, these guys are usually super quick at turning things around and getting a response raised to us and working in with us and finding a solution. I check our partnership chats every single morning. It's the first thing I do. And I always see Selokish working with, one of their dev members on a problem that may have manifested, that a community member may have reported, or it might be, with gas issues being one recently. We had price feeds being reported recently. Like I said, I'm not going to call people up because they're actually doing a fantastic job of supporting us and fixing these. But just wanted to add that there, even though, there are bugs, it's really cool to see the partnership protocols were involved, and forming Spirit Swap V2, providing that service to the DAO in order to sort of find solutions.
That's very cool. And I got to believe you kind of addressed this idea that how does it end up evolving into all of these partners and the community of investors? How does it migrate? And I don't actually have the answer to this question, and I don't know that anybody yet has the complete answer, but when you guys are taking this from a core group of folks who, like, you came up through the community and became, head of the operations part of the team, and everyone else was kind of here at the core, and you guys were making decisions, right? It's one thing to have a vision and say, okay, we're going to execute on this. We're going to deliver a V2 to the community. The next phase of how do you migrate from, hey, we've got a vision, then we want the community to approve it, to, oh, is the community now coming up with a vision? Is that something you guys really think about, like how that actually is going to happen and work? And do you think it's just something you're going to learn by trial and error as you go?
Yeah. Every day, that's all I think about really, because my job is to help communicate that, like I said at the beginning, making sure the right hand goes to the left hand. And, in this case, it's fluid communication between governance stakeholders, so the community and Spirit holders, and whatever protocols are, making proposals to make changes around B2, or, adopt a part of B2 into their ecosystem. So at the moment, we've got two potential proposals, one from Rebest, one from Liquid Driver, asking for Spirit incentives to sort of basically help supercharge the Spirit Swap B2 ecosystem and leveraging the intricacies that B2 has to offer. There's just so much technical, and I put it, technical sort of mechanics going on under the hood. And while this makes speak to very sort of intricate, and for some, I guess, difficult to understand, it also introduces elements of game theory to this as well. And it's kind of like, if you know how to play the game, you can make it work towards, your protocol's advantage or your own personal advantage as an Inspirit holder. You know what I mean? So there's so much that can be done. Like the ecosystem funds, for example, whoever creates an ecosystem fund doesn't necessarily have to be a protocol. It could be an Inspirit holder who holds the required amount of Inspirit or make an ecosystem fund. They can profit from that, because ultimately it's the ecosystem fund creator who gets a large share of the fees from, those particular LPs that support that particular ecosystem fund. So yeah, there's just so much intricacy involved in B2 that, like I said, it introduces some really cool strategical opportunities for people who are able to see the advantages of B2, see the leveraging that B2 offers. And if you play the game right, it works to your advantage. It gives, I guess, everybody the opportunity to really get involved with the ecosystem if they really want to. It's kind of like an equation between money or time. You can either invest the money in and buy Spirit, lock it up, and then get involved that way, or, provide liquidity, lock your Spirit rewards up into Inspirit and continue to do so, and rebase those rewards that you're getting from the plethora, of returns that B2 offers, eventually, until you get to a point that you're a large enough stakeholder to truly participate and shape the future of Spirit Swap.
Yeah, that's cool. Do you, if I, I don't know how to ask this question, in conceiving of kind of, the path forward and driving a new vision for what's next, V3 or whatever comes next in this kind of conglomerate of partners and the core of what you guys have, What in terms of kind of the community itself, and this is just a curiosity, and it doesn't have to be just about Spirit Swap, but what do you think the percentage of people are in the community that actually want to really have a say in what comes next versus really want to be told what's coming next? Does that make sense? Very cool. Did you say in the fireside chats you're also training the community on how to best leverage the V2 features for maximum
Yeah,
earnings and
yeah.
gain?
So Sid sort of, did a really cool presentation. Wasn't last week, but the week before, all about automating, Spirit Swap V2 call functions and things like that. Basically simplifying the process for them.
Nice.
Just, do you want to talk a little bit about that? I mean, that could be a good thing to touch on.
Yeah, and that's something that definitely can fit in with Parad's protocol that you're thinking of. So what essentially my presentation was about automating, like collecting up bribes and rewards, and those kinds of like stuff. I want to like take it one step further and kind of like invest it back into the protocol. And this is where like your protocol could come in. And like I've been like trying to like waiting to like just try out like that. So yeah, like this is where like I'm just thinking like what else can we automate for users? Because like for me as well, like I don't like log in every week and like collect rewards. Like I just like I don't like remember stuff. Like I don't have the time to like do it. So I just like set up like an automation task and like it just kind of like every 3-4 days it would just go and like automate it for me, sends it to my wallet. But like now it's sitting in my wallet. How do I take this and like further kind of like use it or
Nice.
maximize the impact with it?
That's awesome.
You actually set up an automation system for collecting your rewards?
Yeah, I did a whole fireside.
You want to share that with me? What the hell, dude?
Wait, I just did it.
All you have to do is stir up this fireside.
Uh, one thing I want to mention that kind of builds off of that is I feel like automation and decentralization are sort of correlated. Like you can't have a decentralized protocol that isn't automated with the team kind of running and operating everything. For example, like a lot of current bribe protocols with bribes, like they'll take a snapshot off chain and then do this whole distribution to the people that voted for it. But in Spirit V2, like everything is automated. Like we don't have to touch anything. Like it just runs.
That's awesome. That's great. Well, and I love the idea of you guys, and I'm sure people in the community identifying strategies, leveraging multiple components of Spirit Swap and maybe other protocols outside and figuring out new ways to make more money from them. I mean, and I'm sure with all of the pieces that are there, that there's a ton of ways to do that. Okay, so you're making this push. You're really trying to get to decentralization. Do you see getting to a place where you guys, or is it difficult to see yourself getting to the place where you're really just kind of on the sidelines, guiding and advising, and maybe not actively doing everything that you always do today? Or do you really see kind of a longer term role for all of you to continue to have kind of the roles that you're having today?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And we can kind of like talk about it in like I guess, two parts. One is the DAO mod, like how much can like the DAO do? And this is kind of like our vision, like what do we do so that people can like run Spirit Swap by themselves? So the first thing that we were deciding, or we were just brainstorming like last 2 weeks ago was, what about the UI? Like we have spent so much of our time working on the UI. How do we make sure like that's something that like, other people can like run? So like we're just brainstorming some idea of like, okay, like what if we open source our UI? Can people just use that UI, build like new stuff on top of it, like do whatever they want? So we could have like multiple UIs on top of it. So this is something that he's brought up, like having different people or different entities like run UIs could mean we are actually becoming like a decentralized. We could definitely run one as well. And then how do we kind of like incentivize people to like run these UIs on our behalf? So, or like, I guess just for the ecosystem. So there might be like, we just, again, brainstorming ideas. Maybe there's a small percentage of Spirit emissions, which goes to all UI hosters. And then people can vote on like, hey, which hoster do you like more? And then every week that hoster, whoever receives the votes, like some part of emissions would go to them. So it's like, hey, you gotta be innovative. You gotta like do stuff by yourself. We'll give you like the base code, our skeleton code, and then you kind of like build on top of it. At that point, it's kind of like becoming, yeah, it's kind of like going to a state where people could just like, let's say, we don't want to like whitelist the token on a swap page, but like maybe somebody else wants to, they could whitelist the token on their UI. Maybe they want to like do something else, like that's fine. And this is where like the power is with the people. So I guess
Cool.
that is part one, like the DAO part of it. Part two from like our role would be like, again, like us as Inspirit holders, we would definitely participate in governance, like whenever it comes up, but we would kind of like still be around for advising. Like Nick and Heesh are still part of like multi-sig. So they are kind of like on the council, and like they have like the best interest of the protocol, like for sure. So I'll let like Nick and Heesh talk about it as well, if you want to touch upon it.
Yeah, I guess I'll go first. Yeah, I mean, Sid kind of summed it up pretty well. We want to open things up from the UI perspective. Again, it's through decentralization. We're even like, sort of pondering around, using the sort of liquidity format, whereby maybe multiple UIs are incentivized. That could be a cool idea. Ultimately, all of this would have to be a DAO proposal and passed by the DAO. So I think it's just a case of kind of really honing in and educating the community on the fact that, start thinking up some ideas of how you want Spirit Swap to be governed. Start looking for opportunities. I was talking about this to the mods, the admins sort of last night, because I think everyone's struggling with the idea of like, whoa, like you guys really aren't the owners anymore. Like we all are, like, like, and I'm just like, yes, there's like an opportunity here. Take it and run with it. I mean, if you guys have an idea,
Yeah.
can you make the protocol better from that idea? You can also profit from it as well, depending on, however you spin up the proposal and if the DAO approve it. If you bring something to the table, but you also want to take, if you bring a pie to the table, but in return for bringing the pie to the table, you want to take a slice out of that pie. We've given everybody the tools to do that. And this is where we're sort of alluding to earlier, in the sense that there's not only game theory from like an investment perspective in terms of, where you choose to put your liquidity on Spirit Swap, but, again, put your liquidity in, you get Spirit tokens in return, you lock those Spirit tokens up, you get rewards from those Spirit tokens, multiple facets now, under the sort of mechanics of V2. What you then choose to do with those rewards can ultimately determine. It's like one of those games that you play, sort of, whereby do you want to go this way or do you want to go that way? You know what I mean? That
Right.
will ultimately determine your path. But then on top of that is another layer, I guess, game theory is, okay, cool. I've built myself up to a level of, lots of decent governance, control, or sway over, the DAO, or the ability to just make a proposal. 100,000 in Spirit is all you need. You've then got the opportunity to further shape Spirit Swap and also profit from it, as part of that process. So that's where I'm sort of alluding to in terms of what's really cool is we've really given everybody the tools that they need. And, it's up to them what they choose to do with those tools now. All of it around, the DAO want to make a proposal. If someone wants to make a proposal for us to build something out extra, we're there to build it. You know what I mean? But we kind of want to see other people get involved and see where that leads to, And again, that's always a double-edged sword. You need to make sure that people are interested, engaged, informed. That's why we have the fireside chat. So I feel like we've done our best to sort of cover all bases in
Yeah.
terms of like nurturing the community towards true decentralization, civil governance. But it's balls in the court now, and I'm really
Here's the tools and supplies. Go build something.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. We haven't just like pushed everybody out to the wild. Like, we've given them a compass, a map, a little bit of food, some matches. It's like,
That's
I
awesome.
think of nobody. Whoa, we're still
Yeah.
around. We're still looking over you guys, but we're not making any decisions. We're not pushing anything. And I think it's ultimately, and where we're sort of seeing this manifest in terms of people taking advantage of this are the protocols, because they're very, not only developer mindset, they're also very strategically orientated as well. So we're kind of seeing, I hope we'll sort of see a trickle down effect with, the likes of Liquid Driver, Reverse, Ola, the protocols that have really taken a lot of vested interest in Spirit Swap and guiding governance and supporting Spirit Swap. I'm hoping that'll trickle down. The community members will kind of go, well, we don't need to be a protocol to be able to take advantage of this. We just need to know how to take advantage of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Anybody else want to talk about decentralization or DAO stuff?
Yeah, I guess I could mention one of the tools that's necessary for it is just the DAO having money in the treasury. And we've sort of set Spirit V2 up to accumulate money in the treasury. So the protocol fee for certain pairs, for example, like Spirit Phantom or USDC Phantom, or like DAI USDC, pairs like that, where there's no really protocol on Phantom to claim that protocol fee. We're sending all that to the Spirit DAO treasury so that it can have money to spend on, say, like a developer firm or different marketing firms or anything like that. All it needs is just an idea and a proposal to be well thought out. And then the DAO can pretty much hire any entity to build whatever out.
That's awesome. That's smart. I love that. That's great. I have a couple of more questions. What's next on the horizon from a feature, function, integration perspective? Anything you guys want to start talking about now, or are you just still trying to recover from V2?
Actually, we've had like a couple of discussions with some Inspirit holders who wanted to like do some proposals, and like something that he should actually started to like work on, like a new concept. I don't know if he wants to talk about it right now, or we'll maybe slate it for later. He should leave it up to you. But yeah, like we're still building. We have our idea, like, and behind the scenes, we're kind of like tinkering around with stuff. So yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. That ultimately depends on other protocol, like I said, those other major protocols and ideas they have to go, oh, how can we take this to the next level? We'll work with you guys to do this, but ultimately they're going to be the ones to make the proposal. Because
Nice.
we don't want to, we don't really want to be having kind of centralized decision making over this. So they see an opportunity and want to partner with us to help develop out that opportunity to further the protocol. And yeah, I think in terms of, Keisha, if you want to go into detail around your new idea that was sort of talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I won't go into too much detail, but a lot of larger in-spirit holders have expressed interest in going cross-chain. So just brainstorming ways to achieve that without kind of diluting the emissions on Phantom. And I've come up with some pretty cool stuff. One of them is, I guess, a protocol where it's kind of like a mix between Olympus DAO, Alchemix, and Solidly.
Wow.
Where the voting token is actually a stable coin. And so when you vote, you have a stable coin that's never going down in value and you're earning voting fees. And so one of the reasons why I came up with this is I was just kind of sitting thinking about Spirit V2 and I was like, holding in Spirit is kind of like holding liquidity because you're essentially trading emissions for all the swap fees that those liquidity providers would be earning. So if you were able to hold, say, a stable coin as your voting token instead of like a token that goes up and down like Spirit, essentially you're providing liquidity without any impermanent loss. Um, and yeah,
Awesome.
so that's kind of the direction I've been looking.
That sounds really cool. Wow. Nice. All right. Do you guys think there will ever be a version 3, or is it just going to be this kind of evolving thing of proposals and add-ons to it as it goes?
Yeah, I mean, I don't
Like,
know. I
like,
love building, so I'm always just going in and building new stuff. So,
Nice.
Yeah, I
uh,
think what Heash is building is kind of like a V3 because it's kind of like its standalone system
yeah.
without like any incentives that are needed. So I think it could be considered like a V3
Nice.
if it works.
Hey guys, this was great. Really appreciate it. Thanks for coming on, and look forward to getting this out and hearing what comes next for you guys.
Awesome. Thanks.
thanks.
Very much, Brad.
All right, guys, have a great day.
Cheers.
Take care. Bye bye.
Thank-
Peace.